What's going on, everybody? Anthony Servino here at the Face Off Sports Network with my top fantasy football waiver wire ads for week 3 of the NFL season. We're going to get started with Bucky Irving, and Bucky Irving is one of my guys coming into this season. I never really bought into Rachaad White. I like Rachaad White. Fantasy football league winner last season, as we know, but his price was a little bit higher coming in. And when it comes to efficiency as a runner, he's not the most efficient running back on planet Earth. And now Rachaad White dealing with a groin injury. It's not expected to be significant. It's worth monitoring, and he is deemed day to day, which means Bucky Irving should be locked and loaded on top of your waiver wire priority list in week 3. We know Rachaad White has been underwhelming as a ball carrier, despite putting up a solid fantasy showing in week 1. And when it comes to inefficiency in between the tackles, that's going to open up the door for extended work for Bucky Irving. Now, in week 2, Bucky Irving saw 7 carries for 22 yards. Not great numbers, but it could be a hint for an uptick in workload, especially if Rachaad White misses a game, or if he plays, he could be limited. And the Bucs could say, hey, let's see what Bucky Irving can do with more touches. Now, week 1, Bucky Irving solid 9.6 PPR points, 9 rushes, 62 yards, 2 receptions on 3 targets for 14 yards. This past game, a little bit different. They had a lead, not a monster lead like in week 1 over Washington, but 7 carries, 22 yards, not as efficient for the aforementioned Bucky Irving, but still it is promising. Rachaad White, 33 carries, Rachaad White, 33 snaps last week, Bucky Irving, 17. Now, Rachaad White, we are seeing his rushing opportunity share slip a little bit. It dropped from 75.6 last season, and this past week, just 58.8. White also is dealing with the aforementioned groin, which, once again, this could open the door for extended opportunity in week 3. And this is a great matchup against the Denver Broncos. And if Bucky Irving sees the increased opportunity, he could be in line for more workload moving forward as the season goes on. So Bucky Irving should absolutely positively be on the top of your waiver wire priority list at the running back position. Next up, Rico Dowdle of the Dallas Cowboys. And listen, I get it. Dallas Cowboys, not the greatest running back room in the world, which means there is room for somebody to emerge eventually. Now, Rico Dowdle, 9.9 PPR points this past week, 7 carries for 30 yards, 4 or 5 targets for 29 yards, and the blowout loss where Dallas was trailing. Dak was facing pressure all day long, and there were some extended dump-offs, and Rico Dowdle was the beneficiary of it. And here's something to monitor. Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle on the season, they have both played in 56 snaps. In fact, there's been a 3-snap differential in the past 2 games for these 2 players. Week 1, 30 for Zeke, 27 for Rico. And then this past game against New Orleans, 26 for Zeke, 29 for Rico. I don't know who, and I'm a Cowboys fan. I don't know who the guy is going to be in this running back room, but I do believe what I believed all offseason long. Zeke is going to get the goal line opportunities, and he will be mixed in as a receiver out of the backfield. He's pretty good at pass protection. Dak trusts him. And Rico Dowdle, he's younger. He has a little bit more pop, a little bit more get up in his step. And I can see a world where Rico Dowdle emerges as the lead yardage leader for this Dallas Cowboys offense, gets some pass catching opportunities. The biggest issue here is a potential cap ceiling. if Rico is conceding those short yardage goal line opportunities to Zeke. But still, he's only rostered in 41% of leagues. This is going to be, despite what we saw against the Saints with that defense, Dallas's offense is going to be elite. It's going to be one of the best in the NFL. And I think their running back room is worth investing in. Let's go to another waiver wire priority at the running back position. And the next two correlate with Isaiah Pacheco's injury. And Carson Steele, only 2% rostered. And this guy needs to be added. Now, I want to preface my takes with this. Kareem Hunt is going to be visiting with the Kansas City Chiefs. He knows the system. He's played here before. Andy Reid trusts him, and it would not surprise me as long as he has a pulse. Now, again, he's been unsigned, and that tells us a lot. But if he has a pulse, there's a good chance Kansas City brings him on. And at worst, he's going to do what he did last year in Cleveland. He'll have some touchdown upside. But when it comes to guys on this roster, we know they're there. Carson Steele, I personally am prioritizing over Samaje Perine. Once again, 2% rostered. Isaiah Pacheco will be out an extended period of time with the fibula. And Steele should be a deep sleeper. Now, more of a fullback build, more of a short yardage back build. And Samaje Perine, once again, is there. We'll talk about Samaje Perine in a few minutes. But Carson Steele rushed the ball 7 times for 24 yards, did not receive a target against Cincinnati. Meanwhile, Samaje Perine, you would think this is a back-and-forth game. He's the veteran presence in this running back room. Perine only touched the ball once during Week 2's win over Cincy. And he's supposed to be, hey, he's the better running back, the experienced running back, great receiver out of the backfield. Samaje Perine only played 5 snaps against Cincinnati, where Carson Steele had 14, obviously Pacheco 41. But moving forward, I think I'm going to prioritize Carson Steele. And even if there is a workload split between he and Samaje Perine, this is similar to how I feel about the Dallas Cowboys situation with Rico and Zeke. I think Carson Steele, the early down grinder, he's going to get the short yardage opportunities and the goal line opportunities. You know, he's going to concede pass down work to Samaje Perine. But if you ask me what running back I want to roster on the Chiefs, first and foremost, it's probably Carson Steele. Now, Kareem Hunt's going to throw a monkey wrench into things if he is indeed signed, but right now he's not. And waiver wire is running tonight, which means get your hands on Carson Steele. And let's just jump into Samaje Perine. We're not going to spend a lot of time on Samaje Perine, but, you know, it does concern me that he only had 1 touch against Cincinnati where, you know, he could have had more run in a passing game. That was a game where Kansas City was back and forth. They were trailing, and he was not on the field. In fact, in 2 games since joining the Chiefs, 13 total snaps, outsnapped by Carson Steele, 18-13. Samaje Perine, 8 snaps in Week 1, 5 in Week 2. It could be where he was signed late and he's getting acclimated to the offense, and all of a sudden, now that they need him, he could completely emerge, right? That's within the range of outcomes. But again, from what we know, what we see, Carson Steele, early down work, touchdown work, Samaje Perine potentially mixed in with the third down and passing down work. But the thing that blows it all up is if they go ahead and sign somebody like Kareem Hunt, Leonard Fournette's out there, Jerick McKinnon, who knows what's going to happen here. But as for now, we got to go with what we know. And what we know is in Kansas City, they have Carson Steele, Samaje Perine, and Amani Bailey. And I think I'm forgetting somebody else on the practice squad. So, you want to get your hands on the guys who have been on this roster since Week 1 and not on the squad. By the way, CEH on the NFI list, he's not eligible back until Week 5. He's dealing with the mental health, the PTSD. I wouldn't blow your load on Steele or Perine because CEH is another guy. He might come back and he's not great, But again, he knows the system. He's been there. Andy Reid's keeping him around for a reason. So this backfield is now, it went from being Isaiah Pacheco and only Isaiah Pacheco to a really, really murky situation, which sucks because this Kansas City backfield has value in fantasy football. We just don't know who the hell's going to get the touches. Let's go to some wide receivers. This is where it gets fun. DeMarcus Robinson. And wow, what a disaster for the Rams. And I was in on DeMarcus Robinson last week following the Puka injury, Puka to IR. Now we got Cooper Kupp injury, Cooper Kupp in a walking boot, Cooper Kupp, another ankle injury that's significant, and another IR stint for Cooper Kupp expected to miss significant time. DeMarcus Robinson, he should have already been rostered. But according to Yahoo, he's only rostered at 42% of leagues, which is insane because there was that role opened up with Cooper Kupp, with Puka Nacua going down. Now you have the two top receivers in a good offense down. If I come back next week and DeMarcus Robinson isn't 90% roster, like if I have to do another DeMarcus Robinson waiver wire video, then I don't know what you people got to get your heads checked. I'm not trying to be mean here, but he should have been rostered everywhere last week. But now DeMarcus Robinson looks to be the guy. He played 92% of the snaps in week 2, caught 2 of 4 targets for 50 yards. Excellent metrics when it comes to route win rate and separation rate. And DeMarcus Robinson, I want to go back to last season. Last season, when Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua missed some time down the stretch from weeks 13 to 17, DeMarcus Robinson was an excellent fantasy football weapon. In fact, weeks 13 through 17, at least 13.6 PPR points in every game in that period. And he played at least 56 snaps in 4 of 5 games in that period. So, he's the trusted wide receiver. He's a veteran. We know Sean McVay wants to lean on his veteran players, guys like Stafford. Who do you think he's going to lean on? And because of this dire wide receiver situation, guys like Tyler Johnson should probably also be picked up. Now, Tyler Johnson is now the number 2, and he's not rostered anywhere either, but in 2 games, because of injuries, Tyler Johnson, 46 and 45 snaps. DeMarcus Robinson, 68 and 48 snaps. These guys must be rostered. When it comes to the next man up, it's actually Jordan Whittington, who Steve D'Angelo from our live show has talked up. Whittington last week, 26 snaps because of injuries. Tutu Atwell, 10 snaps. So it looks like Whittington could emerge as the wide receiver 3. But as far as the top option, you want DeMarcus Robinson. As far as the number 2, you want Tyler Johnson. And again, like what happened last week against Arizona, that Rams offense, they got punched in the mouth unexpectedly by an erratic Cardinals defense, but they could certainly pack the punch. In a game like that, we saw it with Dallas, right? We saw it with Miami, Buffalo this week. And now we saw it with the Rams this week. These offenses that are built to score early, score fast, get a 2-possession lead and keep pouring it on, and then they send their defense to blitz you, and it's just, it turns into a back and forth or a blowout. The Rams, the Cowboys, the Miami Dolphins, they're not built to start slow and play from a deficit. The Cardinals came out, punched the Rams in the mouth, and the Rams offense didn't know what to do because instead of doing it their way, they had to play catch up, and that doesn't always work for everybody. And and this is a prolific offense. But look at Dallas, prolific offense. They're down 2-3 scores. Now they can't play Dallas football. And I want to run. I'm going to run. I'm going to let Dak pass. And that's what the Rams do. Like to run, open up the pass. No, instead they have to pass. Same thing with Miami. They like to use the run to open up the pass. You can't do that when you're down 2-3 scores in the first quarter. You need to pass to stay in this game because your defense can't stop anybody. And your defense can't stop anybody because you can't send blitz packages because you're not getting to third down. And we see, and these three teams are always guilty of it. So getting back to the waiver wire, let's put to bed what we saw last week from the Rams offense. Stafford was a mess. Everybody was a mess. They now are going to prepare with DeMarcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson as their top two receivers. Their offensive line's banged up. It'll get healthy. They still have Kyron Williams. Now, the matchup against San Francisco, it's at home. San Francisco's secondary, we've seen it through 2 games, especially against Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings. It's not a great secondary. McVay knows the 49ers. Stafford knows the 49ers. I think this could be a really nice get-right game for somebody like DeMarcus Robinson, because you're probably going to have to start him in some spots if you play multiple leagues, especially. Man, I'm fired up today. Let's go to Quentin Johnston. And I can't believe this guy has a pulse, right? I had him left for dead, drug out to the pastures, but Quentin Johnston, 7% rostered, and he put up a nice performance in week 2. In fact, the first 2 games of the year, Quentin Johnston has been fantasy relevant. Obviously, week 1, not great, 6.8 PPR points, but this past week, 22.1. Where the hell did this come from? He leads all Chargers receivers in snaps with 81, followed by Palmer with 70, and my guy Ladd with 67. So this guy's always on the field. Maybe they're giving him a year 1 mulligan. That Chargers team was a little bit of a mess anyway under the old regime, but they seem to trust this guy. And 22.1 PPR points, granted a dream matchup against the Carolina Panthers, who are perennially reeling. But 45 snaps played, 5 of 6 targets, 51 yards, 2 touchdowns. Can we expect that stat line every week? Absolutely not. This is also a team that, look at J.K. Dobbins. He looks like the second coming of I don't even know the comp for J.K. Dobbins, but he might be the best running back in the league right now, as crazy as that sounds, in terms of pure runner. My guy, J.K. Dobbins. But if Dobbins keeps this up and stays healthy, the Chargers aren't going to have to throw a lot. But when they do throw, it's going to be with high efficiency, because the defense, hey, we need to stop J.K. Dobbins, and a quarterback like Justin Herbert is going to pick you apart. And we've seen that through 2 fairly efficient games. I don't know if I trust Quentin Johnston in my starting lineup unless I'm absolutely in a bind, but he's absolutely rosterable right now, because it's not just that pop game. It's the fact that he leads the wide receiver room in snaps. I don't love this matchup upcoming against Pittsburgh or KC or Denver, so it's a tough stretch. But he's somebody I certainly want to stash, because coming out of the week 6 bye, Zona, New Orleans, the schedule softens up a little bit. So, if you're in a bind, you want to have a waiver wire stash, Quentin Johnston at wide receiver. Now, if you need a wide receiver to play, and I can't believe I'm saying this, what about Alec Pierce? I thought week 1, I'll admit it was an anomaly. Alec Pierce, if Downs was healthy, people were saying, hey, this guy's the 4. They drafted A.D. Mitchell. Michael Pittman's a stud. Nobody was really wrong. And then week 1 came, we realized nobody really knows anything at all sometimes, including us, including me. And Alec Pierce, week 1, pops 21.5 fantasy points, 36 snaps. Now, and the reason why I didn't buy in, 3 targets, 3 catches, $125 and a touchdown. It's almost like Xavier Worthy's week 1. All right, let me see you do it again. Let me see the opportunity share increase. Well, it did in week 2 for Alec Pierce. In fact, week 2, Alec Pierce, 50 snaps. He outsnapped Michael Pittman 50-45. 7 targets, tied for the team lead. 5 receptions, 56 yards, and another touchdown. Those 56 yards led all Colts pass catchers, and I get it. Josh Downs is going to be returning soon. But I think Alec Pierce, with his rapport with Anthony Richardson, his big play pop ability, he has played himself into a full-time role in this offense. In fact, Alec Pierce, 86 snaps. Michael Pittman, 84, 58 for Mitchell, 33 for Doolin. I think I think Mitchell, A.D. Mitchell, we like him. Nice talent, is the odd man out once Josh Downs returns into that slot role. So Alec Pierce, come on down. You get Chicago. And guess what? Chicago's a defense I like. Really nice secondary, but they are a big play waiting to happen. Just look what Nico Collins did to them on Sunday Night Football. And, let's see. Let's see Alec Pierce do it again. I said that after week 1, and he did it again. And now he gets another shot at a tough defense. So we're going to learn a lot about who this team is and who this passing attack is and who the guy we want is, because my panic level for Michael Pittman, by the way, is through the roof. Let's start winding this down at the quarterback position. Justin Fields, 20% rostered only, and it looks like the 2-0 Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think they can turn away from Justin Fields right now. And if you're in fantasy football, I think he's a must-add quarterback. Eventually, Justin Fields is going to play Justin Fields football. Through the first 2 games in fantasy-wise, he hasn't done a damn thing. Under 13.5 PPR points in both matchups. He's only thrown for 1 touchdown. Week 1, he ran 14 for 57. This past week, 8 for 27. Not throwing for a ton of yards. In fact, throwing volume. He has not attempted more than 23 passes in a game. His completion percentage, 73.9 in week 1, 65 in week 2. They are setting Justin Fields up to play fairly efficient football with the running game that they have in Pittsburgh and the commitment to the run. Justin Fields, in terms of turnovers, he has yet to turn the football over. So I don't want to hear nothing about Russell Wilson. And I came into this year thinking Russ was going to be the guy. Justin Fields is playing pretty good football. And eventually he's going to have to turn on the Justin Fields skill set and run and make some good throws. I'm not saying he's a must-add, but if you want to stash somebody, if you have Jordan Love, if you have a quarterback that's underperforming and you just like, you know what, I need somebody in my back pocket. Justin Fields, we know the talent he is. And eventually that talent is going to show. So he's somebody you want to roster in a lot of leagues. Let's go to the tight end position, and this is going to be a fun one. Derek Carr. I'm sorry. Before we go to the tight end position, Derek Carr. Talk about a player that needs to be added everywhere. Derek Carr, since last season, and I'm talking going back to the final month of 2023, right? So from week 15 to week 18, Derek Carr has thrown for, in terms of fantasy points, at least 22.5 fantasy points in 3 of the last 4 games of last season to open this season. 23 in week 1, 26 last week against Dallas. Derek Carr has been an outstanding fantasy quarterback in 5 out of his past 6 games. In all of these matchups, he's thrown at least 2 touchdowns, and quite a few with 3+ touchdowns. He has big play speed all over the field. When you look at Olave, Shaheed, Kamara, and Gary and Clint Kubiak, has been the best thing to happen to Derek Carr's career, possibly ever. If you need a quarterback, as I said, Fields is a stash. If you need a quarterback to start now, these matchups for Derek Carr: Philly, KC, you can throw on them. Philly could throw on them. Atlanta's defense is good. I think you could throw on them. Tampa, you could throw on them. So, the next month, Derek Carr could go, into mid-October as, a top 12 or better fantasy football quarterback. Now, let's start winding this baby down with the tight end position. Let's start my guy, Mike Gesicki. And I went into this draft season. I have Mike Gesicki everywhere. I bought in to the fact that, okay, Tyler Boyd's not going to be here. And they have a bunch of guys they could throw into that slot receiver role. But what do we know from the past of Mike Gesicki? He plays the big slot very well. I get the last year in Miami with McDaniel. It did not work out well. Gesicki's not a good blocker. Then he goes to the Patriots, where pass catchers go to die. Now he's in a spot, Mike Gesicki, where they're using him correctly. They have a quarterback that can get him the football. They have other weapons like Jamar Chase that are going to pull the coverage off of Gesicki, and they're going to let Gesicki exploit the mismatches that can line him up all over the field. And in week 1, Mike Gesicki, he had a touchdown called back. He should have scored against New England, but he did draw 4 targets. And also in week 1, Gesicki 17 snaps to 25 per sample. Now let's be real here. We know Gesicki is not a good blocker, which means guys like Sample and Eric All, they're going to play more snaps. But when Gesicki is in there, they're going to utilize him. In fact, in week 1, he played 17 snaps. He ran around in 15 of them. Now, last week against Kansas City. Now, what do we know about Kansas City? Because I told everybody to start Gesicki, and you can go back to the archives of last week. After what Isaiah Likely did, there's a hole in this Kansas City secondary. I think the tight end against Kansas City secondary could be a big cheat code in fantasy football, and Gesicki was outstanding. It could have been a career game, right? 16.1 PPR points, 7 receptions on 9 targets, 91 yards, 10.1 yards per target. He is the weapon that Joe Burrow has been looking for years. Got to remember, Cincinnati, they've been looking for a reliable tight end for years because we know Burrow likes to target the tight end. They brought in a lot of different names. Gesicki's the one. Gesicki's the one, and I believe Joe Burrow leans on Gesicki enough where Mike Gesicki potentially, and he's been undrafted, right? Like, I have him everywhere, but a lot of leagues, especially tight end premium, FFPC high stakes, he was going undrafted. You could pick him up on a waiver wire. He's hardly rostered, I believe under 10%. He could be a top 12 PPR tight end when it's all said and done. Especially, I get T. Higgins coming back. There's still going to be a need for that number 3 pass catching option. And I think moving forward, it is Mike Gesicki. Let's go to the final tight end, the final waiver wire ad. That is Hunter Henry, only 24% rostered. And Hunter Henry had an outstanding game, 18.9 PPR points, 9 of 12 targets, 109 yards. And what do we know? Like, this is another guy. How isn't he rostered more? And I get Pierce, New England, and the quarterback, whether it's Brissett, whether it's Drake May, there's not a lot of great receivers on this offense. Hunter Henry's going to have a role and a significant role in this passing attack. Even last year, Hunter Henry had quite a few pop games, as bad as it was for New England. And we are already seeing it. Hunter Henry's going to have a role. 12 targets, and I see that coming? No. Is that number going to go down? Probably. But there are going to be weeks where Hunter Henry will be the focal point of his passing attack. And even when he's not the focal point, he's going to be the primary check down option, the short and intermediate route option. He's reliable. He's a veteran. He has red zone presence. He has yet to score a touchdown, but we know he had quite a few touchdowns last year in big spots, and I think he even had 2 multi-touchdown games. So this New England offense is exceeding expectations. They somehow hung in there with Seattle, a pretty good offense, and you get the Jets on Monday Night Football. This could be a nice spot for Hunter Henry because the Jets, they can shut you down on the outside, which means maybe a guy like Hunter Henry is once again utilized. Maybe Hunter Henry sees, 6 to 9 targets this upcoming week and brings another high PPR floor. Regardless, this is another back-end tight end. It was probably ignored in a lot of home league drafts. He should absolutely positively be rostered everywhere, especially with the state of the tight end position. The state of the tight end position, guys like Kelsey disappointing. Laporta, disappointing. Quite a few, Kincaid, disappointing. Quite a few, Ferguson hurt. Quite a few. Njoku hurt. Quite a few of these top-end guys hurt, not performing, not being targeted, which means guys like Gesicki and Hunter Henry, you absolutely need to roster them. Until next time, I'm Anthony Servino. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, the alert icon, so you can be notified anytime you're live to answer your questions or drop content like this. This is the Face Off Sports Network. We'll see you next time.